Baldini, and I am bringing to order this Planning Commission meeting of October 26th. And with that, I'd like to do a roll call. And I'll start down the list. Jonathan Justice.
Present.
John Lafferty.
Present.
Vera Worthy.
Present.
Gail Sykes. You're muted.
Present.
Aaron Sabatella.
Present.
Okay. Joe Day.
Present.
Brenda Antonio. And Bill Walters.
I think
Bill's
he's
in
coming in right now.
Okay. Bill?
Yes,
Okay. We just did the roll call. I just wanted to make sure we had you.
calling in from my basement.
Who was that? We just got.
Brenda Antonio.
Brenda.
And Brenda's present. So we have all the commissioners present. And with that, we have enough for the meeting, which hopefully will be lively and entertaining. But first, we need to get the minutes of the last meeting out of the way. Are there any questions or comments on the last minutes? Any questions, discussions, or anything that we want to have? Then can I have a motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Right,
okay. The next item is the comp plan and the review of the comments that we got from the public. And with that, we have Debbie with a small presentation as to what we had as far as all the comments. And you should have all gotten the comments, the consolidated comment list, plus some action items that we have been taking care of along the way. So we'll go through all of that. There's about 8 items in there that need some discussion. And ideally, when we're done with this, we can make the recommendation to go to City Council. With all of that said, Debbie, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Planning Commission members. Tonight, we're going to go through all of the comments received. Are you able to see the PowerPoint presentation on your screen?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to go through all the comments, but I'm going to give a refresher, as we always do, to post on the website for those joining us virtually. So you know David and myself. We're to the final, I would say to the final gate for the horses, but we're actually to the public comment period, which we wrapped up in October, and to the adoption part, which is sending the document to the state first. So we released your draft plan on August 12th, and it was accessible by the city website link. You could print and copy at request at City Hall. And we had provided an input form. Because of COVID, it changes going out and talking to people about the charrettes. So our public comment period was nice because it began August 11th and it actually ended October 13th. The public hearing was held on October 13th. I'm not sure how many people got a dial in for that. We received only 3 public comment questions. But out of our responses, we got 73 written comments. This is from the public. And 10 participants. I think we're pretty good on the numbers, and the comments were all very well. We also, required by state law, had to do intergovernmental coordination for our review. We sent an email requesting they review the document and provide comments August 14th. The comments were due October 8th. As you can see, we were required to send it to Newcastle County, Wilmatco, City of Wilmington Municipal Services Commission, and the city engineer. And we actually received only 2 participants, but 23 written valuable comments. So they took their time going through the document quite a bit. So I have to give a shout out, a valuable plan contribution from the Municipal Services Commission, which is Pam and her team, and the city engineer, which is Dave Athey from AECOM. They really took their time going through the document and really laid up a lot of infrastructure and initiatives with environment, which I think is very important to the city. For the public hearing, we had 2 participants. They had comments and questions. They said it was a very ambitious plan. And they asked who would do the work moving forward. And then concerned with some mapping overlap, which I'm going to get into in another comment. The state strategies versus the future land use versus the zoning. And then compliments from the last plan to this plan. So those were actually nice to hear. And you're going to hear the comments that I gave back briefly when we go over the spreadsheet. Other than that, we had no objections and no additional comments. So we closed the public hearing and we closed the comment period on the document itself. So tonight I'm going to go over a spreadsheet, which you're familiar with seeing. The comments were all posted on the website. You received them, I believe, last week. And then today we wrapped up our recommendations for action. So I apologize for that delay, but I wanted to make sure we have some good news of why we. So in my viewpoint, we have 8 discussion items tonight, but I'm open to discuss all 90, some of them. But most of them were updates and additions. Most of them, I would say close to 90% were all considered and included in the plan. So that's the good news is the people spoke, the Municipal Service Commission, the city engineer, and the public spoke, and we listened and we incorporated their comments into the document. So what does this do to our plan now for the schedule? So we had scheduled originally to update the plan till November 4th. The reason your comments were delayed because we actually, other than a couple 8 items with your input, we're actually ready to submit tomorrow to the state. So if the Planning Commission recommends approval or contingent upon items, we'd like to be able to submit this tomorrow and get it back in plenty of time prior to 12/4. So if there's any comments that you need to review, we can hold a special meeting. We do not anticipate any new comments from the state because as you know, in June or July, we received state comments that said we had no certification issues at all. So we incorporated all of their comments. They recommended we don't anticipate anything to hold us back with the state. And then tentatively, we're scheduled for the second read of the ordinance and the potential adoption on December 8th. Contingent upon the governor's certification, and then we'll provide the deliverable the end of December, beginning of January. So it's nice to be ahead of the schedule when we were behind the schedule originally. It's nice to have a little bit of catch up with the comments. You have my contact information. And at this time, unless you have any questions on that brief presentation, if you want me to take a pause, I can go right into the comments.
We're good.
Good, okay. So I'm now going to go through the comments. I believe everybody has this document, but I just want to make sure I zoomed in a little bit bigger. Can you see the Word spreadsheet document with highlighted yellow?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's up.
Thank you. So I'm just going to scroll down very quickly to show you. These are, you've seen this format before when you had the draft plan. It's always the number, the page, the comment, exactly verbatim what they said, and the action for consideration. So once again, we highlighted what we need attention in yellow and red. And if you look, I'm just going to scroll down the spreadsheet so you can see we've done a lot of work. We've incorporated a lot of comments, and it takes us all the way down to that magic number of 96, and then the public hearing questions. So what I'd like to do first is entertain the items that need attention and further discussion and direction in red, and then open it up for commission comments on the remaining numbers with the comments that they have. So comment number 1, and it actually goes comment 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are all from the same property owner, the same land development application, and they submitted a concept plan for your consideration in the future. So 1 through 6 is actually general language. Out of 1 through 6, we basically got the comments that we received are basically a site plan or conceptual plan submittal, which isn't appropriate at the comprehensive plan level. They're actually, if you break this down, looking for a change from the map 3 suggested land use from industrial park to mixed use. If that change was allowed, then they would ask for map zoning from industrial park to, and they have not requested a specific zone. So since the comprehensive plan doesn't include the review of submitted conceptual site plans, as that's actually determined through your normal review process, one of the recommendations we had up for discussion was to move forward. If the applicant wanted to move forward after the adoption of the comprehensive plan, they could submit a minor mapping amendment upon consideration by the Planning Commission and City Council. By doing that, this will allow you ample time for proper discussion and review and the public hearing that's going to be needed for the amendment. If you were to take consideration of this now, since we've had all the maps completed, we've had the public hearing, we would then have to hold another public hearing for a change to the actual official future land use map. And then eventually within 18 months, the zoning would have to change. So our recommendation is we've heard this, I've heard this property mentioned about every meeting for about 2 years almost. And they actually have the concept plan. However, this isn't the proper protocol to submit the concept plan. So I wanted to open up for discussion to see what the Planning Commission's recommendation was. We're recommending that any future land use requests that came in this late in the hour, and it was during the public comment time, that they now get forwarded to a map amendment process. So questions and comments on number 1 for discussion, 1 through actually 6.
Well, let me start with it. Since we are at the end of the second extension on this plan, the drive is to get it closed so that we have a baseline to move from. And because there are a number of things that we have to consider with the property and the development of the property, it's going to take some discussion. And then you're talking about the development of another large complex, and we've got the what do I want to say, the zoning things and the drawing package items that we wanted to work on before we address these things. So we have a lot more work on our side before we would consider this. So that's part and parcel of why I'm saying it should fall to the other side of the plan, so we can take the time and do it right.
I agree. They simply haven't risen to the threshold level of the normal protocol for a development of any size, let alone this one. So I would, in spirit, I think what they're attempting to execute is very good. That's my personal feeling. And I've read what is available and been to the site, and it makes a great deal of sense to me. But we don't have enough to do anything on. And I wouldn't enter it into the plan, the comprehensive plan, prematurely, because we'd be doing it in the dark.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments?
I agree.
All right, if there's no other comments, going once or twice, 3 times, we then move to the next highlight area. Whoops, did I have somebody? Item 13, you'll see, in cooperation with property owner, consider rezoning Little League fields, Alanka parking lot and other vacant lands, open space and recreation to provide space for recreation center. This one also came in our public comment review timeframe, and I believe this is the same recommendation that we would have. These are all owned by others or trustees. So we recommend discussions with property owners for a map amendment in the future after adoption again. So once again, this might be a great idea, but other property owners would need to come forward and ask if they want to do that. There needs to be discussion held on that as well. And when we talk about changing somebody's future land use or changing somebody's zoning, it isn't about flipping a coin and figuring out what one you want. It's what would work. How many variants would have to be done for what you're doing? So you really look at the land around it, the land itself. So once again, on this recommendation, I have the same recommendation for consideration, which is if the city wants to pursue discussions with the property owners for a map amendment in the future after the adoption of the comprehensive plan, they could do so. But we did not receive letters from any of these property owners requesting to be rezoned as well.
So what do we have? What is the current future land use for these properties?
I would have to look at each one at that map. They vary.
I think there's two on that. Let me think here. And I know this came up before several years ago, trying to get it rezoned. The ball fields rezoned.
The ball fields are called out for mixed use.
Okay,
Number 3. And I think that Belanca and parking lot, the other piece of that seems to be called out. That's yellow industrial, it says. And my guess is that those match the current zoning.
So that's what we did with our exercise, was that I wanted to be clear, was we matched the zoning. We matched the future land use classifications to the zoning. We were not changing anybody's zoning classifications in this plan adoption.
so from that perspective, then there could be conversations about
Future.
the change versus, but in the course of that conversation, it'd be, versus what it is now. I mean, that's
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with Debbie again. I don't think this is something you would want to make a snap decision on.
And while I think it's a good, maybe potential zoning application, we did not get the request from the property owners. So we're a component that would need to be at the table.
Yeah, I think that's the important piece, is that the property owners haven't requested this change.
Mhm.
And that's primarily one of the base points of this process. They have to want it.
Any other discussion on item 13? Item 18. So the comment that's highlighted, we actually took out multifamily in the recommendations for A and B because it was targeted for multifamily. Comment was support home ownership. What was in the comp plan says support home ownership, but moratorium from single family to multifamily housing conversions seem extreme. For instance, conversions could help fund renovation of large single family home into 2 condo units. Otherwise, property might remain vacant. So what we have in our current recommendation for the strategy is this item C, control housing conversions from owner occupied to rental through a city moratorium on conversions of structures from single family to multifamily residences. So this is one that was in your old plan, and it's very firm. So something must have transpired around the 2008 or earlier era to where things were probably being converted. So I'm not sure if you want to go to the length of a moratorium, or you want to review zoning code, potential zoning code opportunities to ensure that there's ample, I would say, area requirements met to allow 2 units. So one example could be is if you have a larger home and you want to split it into 2 units, what does that do for driveway? What does that do for parking? What does that do for utilities? Does everything have to be metered separately? Are you paying separate impact fees? So are you paying for 2 units as everybody else did? Are you meeting all the requirements for parking, which could be a problem? So if there was some wording that you wanted to put in there that would say you want to revisit opportunities within the code, potentially allow. I'm just not sure of the pleasure of the commission.
Within this same part, I think there was a number of conversations about chop houses that this may have come from as well,
Okay.
historically.
I'm just going to throw something in there. Why everybody, if everybody wants to give some recommendations, I thought I'd try some language.
So do we have some comments or some thoughts here?
Mr. Chairman, my only thoughts are, you know, in the highlighted portion, it does bring up a good point. That, you know, if we restrict conversions, we could see large houses remain vacant for longer periods of time. And that is one thing that concerns me, because we still have a property on Delaware Street, a prominent property that has been vacant for years. And I'm not saying, you know, it would be developed because it was able to be converted. But I wouldn't want to take that away, that option away from somebody that wanted to put some money into it and convert it over either. So I'm not in favor of a moratorium, which is what I really wanted to say.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan myself, but but both sides of that coin, because if homes like the one that's on 4th and Delaware, I think that's the one you're referring to, can be reworked and be beneficial to the community. I mean, that's a very positive side, and especially with the DDD program that we've got. Somebody comes in and wants to do the investment and things of that nature, we've got the incentive to fix it up. But then the other side of it is, again, to the rest of the neighborhoods, you know, if you're bringing in and you do the chop, then you've got parking issues, you've got other issues. So it's one of those, again, it's another one of these things that needs a lot more thought and conversation from both sides of the cube here.
Yeah, I think we could take it and actually just put standards into the code for conversions rather than do anything like a moratorium.
Yeah, I'm not a big, like I say, to me, moratoriums are disincentives towards the community from the outside perspective.
And Joe, it looks as if while we've been talking, Debbie has actually drafted some language to exactly what you were suggesting.
If you can see that highlighted part without my font. Research zoning code standards and requirements for conversions from a 1 dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units and potential changes to the code. So that's saying that we need to be more educated. We need to do a little bit of research, maybe look at some inventory opportunities and recommendations versus just allowing it maybe to trickle down. Anybody have any comments or concerns or questions on that wording language?
Debbie, the only thing that I would say is that maybe not limit it from one dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just 1 dwelling unit to a multifamily unit.
So
Because-
multifamily, I have to look to see if it's 4 or more. That was my.
Oh, okay. I just didn't want it to be, because there may be some large enough to go from a 1 dwelling unit to a 4 dwelling unit.
That's a good point. Okay, that's a good point.
And yeah, and actually the house you had in mind, I think, if it's
Probably could handle 4
big
dwellings.
enough, yeah.
Yep.
I'll just change that from 2 to multiple dwelling units.
Yep. That sounds great.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on item 18? Okay.
Looks
Go
good.
to item 31. So this was a recommendation in the plan in chapter 3. We had some, I'm going to call housekeeping. We cut and pasted what was in the other plan about land use process and procedures. And this was a good comment because they actually are readdressed in chapter 4 as well. just some different wording. So so I agree with the recommendation, and I think we need to remove the goals from chapter 3, which is community services, and move them to chapter 4, but I want to ensure that they are very specific and inclusionary. So some of them got very detailed and they overlap with another one that was less detailed. So I'd like to do is move the goals from chapter 3, and I can actually share that screen real quick if you'd like to see some of those. Toggling screens gets a little interesting, but I'm going to give it a shot. So I'm pulling up our goals. See if I could just, it's not going to just go over ever, I know. So are you seeing the comp plan itself?
Yes.
Yes.
What? Bonus.
Yeah.
Okay, these were the goals in chapter 3. So there are standard, this is what I'm going to call our housekeeping. This is everything we were saying. Okay, we need to change land use process. We need to look at the zoning code. We need to talk about the buyer information packet, which has been updated a little bit. So this is pretty much your housekeeping, and that's in our chapter 3. But if we go to chapter 4, which is land use, which is where Bill was talking about a lot of procedures that we put in the comments about how to actually get things lined up to be in front of you. So what I'd like to do is add to goals 4 and include that wording because it's the appropriate section. Because we talk about the land development application process down here. So I'd like to merge those two together. I thought that was a good comment to take out our million goals and get it down a little bit more palatable.
And that came from me. This is Gail. And when I was reviewing the draft comp plan, I read through chapter 3, which is all about our services. It's really just an informational, or basically an informational chapter. And then I got to the goals and strategies, and I thought, why do we have land use? Why do we have these here? And then when I got to chapter 4, I saw it was much more detailed with our strategies. So I just felt, well,
We
so
originally placed them, I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I did it anonymous, but we originally placed them in chapter 3 because that's all the city services. So that was the code enforcement, the planning department staff. But if everybody's okay with this recommendation, I'd like to wordsmith these and incorporate those into chapter 4. I think it was a good recommendation.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it.
Okay. Then we go to item 43, and this is the strategy. It says reword unsure of intent. So this is the actual wording from the strategy that I cut and pasted in here so you can see it. It says, in the case of multifamily dwellings, adopt zoning and land development regulations which provide for a reasonable increase in density. And then we went to say not to exceed 2 additional dwellings. So I'm not sure what, I think that was also a transfer from the 2006, 2008 era. And my recommendation would be to simply strike that, not to exceed 2 additional dwellings.
But that's very similar to what we just did on,
Yeah.
Correct,
Which is another reason why we don't need it here.
correct. Any other questions on item 43?
Sounds good.
Okay, item number 51. So this does get interesting, and I've got to do some homework on this because this was partially a cut and paste. And I think we're missing something because it says, our goal for this chapter says plan for protection of historic district and other flood-prone areas. The strategy is coastal defense, including beaches and dunes, dams, dikes, and levees, and tourism, anchor shorelines, or install wave mitigation devices to protect against erosion. That's a good one. And then it goes into, I don't know if these are supposed to be sub-bullets, but this is what was cut and pasted that I need to figure out the wording of it. It just drops and it starts listing out specific uses. So it says industrial land use, and then it says landfill, salvage yards, and ports, land preservation, including coastal impounds, protected land statewide, fish and wildlife. So this is a list of, to me, infrastructure and uses, and I've got to look and see where that was in your old plan. So that one, I'd like to have the option to be able to wordsmith this and send it to David, because it looks like, to be honest with you, unless these have specific items addressed like A covers a lot of stuff.
Yeah, or something just got lost in the, got
Yep.
cut and not pasted.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So that one is the one I left to say, does anybody remember? And I'll go back to the old plan. I just had too many versions up today. So I'd like to, if this gets changed in the intent, I can send it to David to send out to everybody. If it is missing proper wording in the front like the other ones, then I can insert that, as long as it doesn't change the intent of non-protection. Because the goal is to protect historic district and other flood-prone areas.
Agreed. Again, I got to that one, and when you separate the strategy from the goal,
Mhm.
it just needed some action items or some more verbiage.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Anybody have any more questions? 51? The next comment that I'd have highlighted is item 71. And this, I'm not sure if this is from the same person that had the comment on the public hearing, but the land use zoning boundaries among maps 1, 2, and 3 seem inconsistent in the area north of Delaware Street. So our boundaries are the same on every map. That confused me a little bit. But then, because we're referring in the comment to map 1, which is just the boundary. There's nothing on it but an area on a boundary. But it says the institutional classification seems correct because of the schools in that area. However, it's being indicated as residential 1 and 2 also is confusing. So we're very familiar about the school and this land around that area, that some was open space, some was residential. So the comment I wanted to make back was, once again, the suggested land use classification map by parcel was created by using the complementary zoning classifications. Therefore, no properties were receiving a change of zone as stated in public meetings. So we're recommending no action on this one as well, because we're not anticipating to open up the mapping because no property owners have come forward and we haven't changed anybody's zoning. So without having parcel numbers specific, I had David and I look at this last week and again this week. And we understand the confusion of environmental. When somebody's looking at maps and they're not understanding where we get the layers from, you can see the confusion of, well, if this is a wetland, you can't build on it. If it's in the floodplain, you can't build on it. Well, there's certain things you can do. So we're not taking property rights away. You can mitigate, you can request changes to the map. You can do building code changes to a certain degree to be able to develop the land. So there's several opportunities. Once again, we weren't recommending any going back to a public hearing again and having no recommendation, no action item. Once again, the property owners didn't come forward if there was any change to their land. Discussion on 71.
I agree.
Yeah.
I do as well.
Okay.
Just leave it alone. I mean, yeah.
We're almost there. All right, item 83. This goal seems inconsistent with the last sentence in the third paragraph. The paragraph states that residents want to limit annexations while the goals state to encourage. Unsure if encourage means in proactive or reactive sense. So I took that section out. The result of the 2008 public workshop affirmed and refined the city's position on annexation and growth, which is to limit annexation to critical parcels that rationalize the city edges and to remove unincorporated enclaves rather than outward expansion. So I don't view that as negative annexation. I view that as controlled growth. So you're not going to go out too far outside of your boundaries. You're actually going to have to touch the city limits and expand. And then that goal actually says encourage the development of areas outside but adjacent to Newcastle or under consideration for annexation in a harmonious manner with nearby uses. So if somebody wants to come in that's out of the town limits but adjacent, you're going to review them for annexation in a harmonious manner with the nearby uses. So not everybody can come in mixed use all the time or DG, etc. So I know who this comment came back from, so I shot them an email today just to say, I'm not seeing that, and I just want to make sure unless somebody else is reading that differently.
No, we have elements around the city where half the street, the left side of the street's in the city and the right
Yes.
is not in the city.
Mhm.
Those are reasonable annexation issues that we should be
Absolutely.
discussing.
And we talk about enclaves in your annexation section, about those should be a priority.
Yeah, so we had that when we did the maps, we had that one street out in the village where the backside of the cul-de-sac was outside the city.
Yes.
So there's, from an annexation point of view, there's some cleanup there that can be done. But again, within the discussions and within us creating a process within the city code, we talked about annexation, because I don't think we do have that anywhere.
Yeah, Debbie, I think you're right. The
I think you could have read one line and took it one way and then got to the goal another, but if you actually read the entire annexation chapter, which is only about half a page, it actually flows pretty decent out. You're not at, we didn't change your boundary either. We didn't bring it in and we didn't extend it. Any other questions on 83? All right, so as far as, I'm going to go through these public hearing ones. For those that maybe did not hear the public hearing, which will come out in the minutes, when they asked question number 1 about who will be doing all the work moving forward, we stated that in our implementation section, we requested that the Planning Commission sit down with the City Council every year prior to the budget and talk about what they'd like to do on this implementation goals section. So you're actually doing some of those goals and they're getting done each year. So I also further explained that you'll never get everything done in the 10 years. I hate to say you'll never get it done, but you'll never get it done because it takes time and resource and funding. So if there's grant funding available, it can offset some things. If there's resources available internally or externally, that can also help as well, but that'll be an annual process. And one of our recommendations is you're required by state law to provide an annual report by July 1st on your comprehensive plan and how you're moving with your goals. So right after that is probably a good time for the commission to meet and go through some recommendations that they might want to lay up to the council for consideration in their budget. So that would be an annual process. Question number 2 was the same thing about the overlapping. We explained where we get the resources and data from during the meeting. So one person said, who determines the state strategy and what the level is? We explained that comes from Office of State Planning. That's an annual document that goes through all the agencies, all the municipalities. They take your maps and overlay those within there for the town boundaries and the growth area. The future land use is by the municipality and the zoning was already adopted. We did not change anything with the zoning. We actually just took that map that was just adopted in 2020 and inserted that in your document. So we're explaining the resources, DNREC, DELDOT, how we get different information for our data layers. And then the question, kind of a question of concern was regarding properties and development within the environmental and potential undeveloped lands. So we once again explained if a property is in the floodplain, if it's in a wetland, if it's in a environmentally sensitive or layering, each property gets looked at by itself. And some are regulated by the federal government, some are regulated by the state, some are enforced by the county, some are enforced by the city. So each property gets looked at. There are measurements where people might be able to get a reduction, relaxation, or increase building standards to make development happen. But that's an individual property owner's right to pursue when they're ready to develop their property, just like any developer. So we have I'm gonna open this up in a minute, but since our public comment period is closed, we've held several public meetings, which I've gone through before. We haven't accepted any new comments after October 13th. That was officially closed. So now we have minor changes
Amen.
tonight. And I'm moving forward with your changes, but I want to open the floor up to the Planning Commission with your comments on any of the other items. As you can see, we incorporated several of them. And the check marks back to them, it says information updated as requested. Comment only, no action needed. So you see majority have the check marks. And now all of your page numbers will change. There was a couple minor operational items that would go to the city administrator. And there was a couple capital projects that were brought up, specifically the dog park. And that's in your plan under chapter 13, strategy 13, 3A. There were several, and like I said, we incorporated several of them. All the trustees' information was included. And then I forgot to mention underneath this intergovernmental coordination comments received, below this was all municipal service commission and all city engineer. So they were great comments and updated information. So if the planning commission feels comfortable with the closing of the public comments, the recommendations as set forth, we have made all of the changes with the exception of the 8 items we discussed tonight. I'd like to be able to incorporate those. And I talked to David to see if if the planning commission is comfortable, if they wanted to entertain a motion potentially to adopt or to recommend adoption of the comprehensive plan with the changes noted tonight and approval from Office of State Planning Coordination. This would be the last time you would see this before the final document gets posted for second read and final adoption.
So it does not need to go before city council?
Yeah, that's a second read adoption.
Oh, all right.
So what would the planning commission's role is to recommend approval, but there's 2 contingencies I'd like written into the record. The changes we discussed tonight. And the second one is approval from Office of State Planning Coordination. So if Office of State Planning Coordination comes back with additional comments, I would want the opportunity to bring them back to the planning commission. So you're not surprised or not a part.
So does anyone have any concerns with what we've got laid out here?
I don't.
Okay.
I find this document helpful in case someone would come back and say, you did not pay attention to my comment,
Mhm.
that we have documentation.
True, true.
That's great. That protects you as well as me. So what is getting inserted into the comprehensive plan itself is only the comments received, not the recommendations. These will be placed on this website, but they won't be part of the document itself. The document is comments only. The state requires that. This is 11 by 17. It would probably end up being, you're up to a little over 200 pages now with the changes.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah, Debbie, I like the way you dispositioned each of them in the column.
Thank you. This was a new prototype with COVID. It's a little different, but I think it worked. I think it's working out a little bit better. I think it helps us not go through 22 pages of comments. Because there were several that were just good that should have been considered. That's the end of my presentation, unless there's anything else.
I think we're good. I see we've got 3 questions out there. Kim,
Yes,
we'll open it up for these comments that we have. We'll open it up for the public.
okay, if you want to, if people will raise their hand, they can ask their question, or I can read the question as it was posed.
Okay, yeah, we can read the questions as posed. If they raise their hand, that's fine too.
You want me to address one at a time or wait? You've got,
We can address them one at a time. We can do that. That way we're
the
clear.
first one says, so someone wants to change the use of the ball fields to build there and do away with the fields. That was not the comment that was made. The comment that was made was consideration for open space and recreation. So a property owner did not make the request. Therefore, the recommendation of the Planning Commission tonight was to leave it alone. And if the owner of the ball fields choose to come in for a future land use change and or a zoning classification change, they would need to go through the proper process after the comprehensive plan adoption. Is that good for that, David?
I can bring Phil Gross in. He also has his hand raised if you'd like.
All right, bring him in. What is page 101? This graph?
There's a lot of comments in here that I don't understand what.
Phil,
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Real quickly, getting back to trying to find the graph that you guys were looking at. On page 101, I just see income and property graph. Am I looking, can you see me?
no, we can't see you and you're breaking up.
Because I was hoping, okay, because I'm in under the video Zoom.
Yeah,
So I just wanted to show you what I'm finding on 101. I'm trying to find.
oh, you're not going to share your screen, no. So
What is 101?
So
About the page?
Well, that was the message that was sent back to me to find, where is it? Item number 51. Aaron sent back saying 51 is on page 101 in chapter 12.
okay.
So I'm just trying to find what you guys,
51 is page 126.
126
51 is page 126.
or 126.
Yeah, there's a difference between,
Strategies.
there's the difference between the documents and the file page.
Oh, I see. Okay.
It's a strategy.
Okay, so, sorry. Well, yeah, 126 says chapter 13, space and recreation. I see. Okay.
Sorry about giving you the wrong page.
Oh, no, that's no problem. I was just trying to follow the bouncing ball. Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, the only last one is, could you flip back when you get a chance? Don't have to be now, because I came in late. I came in where you started about the recreation park, so I wasn't sure if there was anything majorly discussed prior to the ball fields for like the first 10 minutes.
No, it was a request for rezoning that we're recommending action be taken at a later date after the comprehensive plan to go through the proper process for the conceptual adoption, public hearing, and site plan.
Gotcha. And what
But to the way you wrote your question, is someone going to change the fields and build there? No, that's never been an issue. And these zoning things have been there historically for a while. It's not like it just happened.
Oh yeah, no, you cleared that up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just if I, what was the zoning request prior to me coming on?
So it's, if you have your spreadsheet that we have posted on the website from the October 13th, it's items 1 through 6. We addressed that at the beginning of the meeting, and I know the public hearing comments are closed. So we can have discussions, but these won't be read into the record for changes.
Gotcha. Okay, I appreciate it.
No change.
Thanks a bunch for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you.
I have Ms. Harris who has her hand raised.
Okay. Hello. Where'd she go? Ms. Harris?
She's on but muted.
Okay, I was muted. You didn't unmute me. Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, thank you. I'm talking in reference to, I believe it was number 18 on Debbie's spreadsheet. And that was in reference from a single dwelling going to a multi-dwelling. Can you explain that to me? Because we have multiple locations around here that at one time only had one house, and now it has 2 or 3 because of an adjustment. So exactly what are we talking about in number 18 as far as these, what the consideration is?
So number 18, the recommendation is to research the zoning code standards and requirements for conversions from a 1 dwelling unit to multiple dwelling units and potential changes to the code. It doesn't say it's in support of it, and it doesn't say it's not in support of it. There's education, there's inventory that could be done. So what I call this is a one-off research project. Meaning if the town wanted this item to be addressed in year 5 or year 6, they could do an existing inventory of all the properties that were once single-family homes that are now converted. And by doing the inventory, you can find and determine if you even have more of a need or not. And then you go through and say, what are the parking requirements? So you'd go through the pros and cons of any kind of changes you have to the code. It would go through a public hearing process, and the planning commission or whoever's assigned that task would bring up all the new code requirements for consideration from the public and the city council. So we just put in there to research it and potential code changes. So I call it a one-off plan investigation or feasibility.
Well, thank you very much, Debbie. This was
Sure.
a lot of work. I can see that. This is a big plan.
It is, thank you. I do
Anyone else?
really good compliments to all the comments received, the multiple reiterations the planning commission had, and here we are, kind of like the Brady Bunch in COVID doing our virtual.
Okay, I don't have any other hands raised.
All right. And we've addressed all the comments?
All the ones that need action, and then there was an opportunity for any other comments.
Okay. Then, that said, are you comfortable?
Hey, Debbie,
Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
no, nothing. Go ahead, David. Sorry.
I'm about to ask the commission if they are comfortable making the recommendation to push this final draft through to city council.
I am.
Agreed.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Anyone not comfortable with it? All right, then. If I could get a motion to approve this final draft of the city of the what are we at? The 2020 comprehensive plan to city council, contingent upon the changes that we discussed tonight, and the final review and approval by the Office of State Planning Coordination.
so moved.
So moved. Second.
Second,
Third.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Well, with that said, thank you all. It's only been 3 years.
Hey, Debbie,
Yes.
I want to be Marcia.
I'll need to see your face. You can be, but I'll need to see your face.
If you see my face, you won't let me be Marcia.
But
Thank you.
thanks to KCI for really
Oh,
doing
thank
a
you.
great job here.
Thank you very much. We're actually finishing it up, which David knows, in sunny Arizona.
Oh, wow.
Oh, tough
Yes.
life.
That's the teaser. She didn't tell you
Yeah.
that she's living there now.
I moved there.
You did.
Yes. So I am performing tests remotely, which is working great for COVID for now. And then my parents and family are all out here. So I get off work at 2:00.
Wow. Well,
So we couldn't quit on you. I couldn't quit on you a month ago. So
Wow.
just up.
Well, thank you, Debbie.
KCI?
Yes. Yes. I still got to wear this. Yes. I'm still full-time with KCI, working on several other plans and site plans. Yep.
Right. Yes, well, thank you for all your hard work.
Yes.
Thank you. You guys have been great to work with.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for everything. Appreciate everything you've
Thanks.
done.
Yep,
I will
thank
get
you.
this submitted to the state tomorrow.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are
Have
there
a good
any-
day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Stay safe. Any comments from the commission? Anybody got anything they want to add for the evening?
Now,
Well, this is exciting. It's very exciting.
I'll make a comment that we had our first meeting on the city's transportation plan
Mhm.
with Century Engineering and Wilmapco and DelDOT all participating. And we'll be putting together an advisory committee, and there will be a visioning workshop after that. So it started.
Good news. That's good news.
Great.
Anything else? Then here comes the good part. Is there a motion? A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
All right.
Well, thank you all. Thank you all, and stay safe. We'll talk
Thank you,
again.
David.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye now.